Coming up next on Wealth International News, a gloomy summer for the Eurozone. The economic months ahead look bleak as the European Union struggles for financial survival. Also, why the price of popcorn will be going up. A deadly shootout in Mexico between police and a drug cartel. The ape that's addicted to smoking. Why the Chinese set up an Olympic camp north of London. And why Germans stuff snuff in their noses. Quickly, Wealth International News starts right now.
This is Wealth International News with Emmy Award-winning news anchor Graham Ledger.
Hello everyone, thank you for watching Wealth International News. I'm Graham Ledger. Topping our news, no European vacation from the spiraling debt crisis. EU finance ministers keep plugging fiscal leaks only to have another financial fissure crack open. Italy is now hinting it might need economic relief. And in Spain, Madrid is struggling to stay solvent after receiving a bailout for its banking sector. This as Spanish coal miners hit the streets in protest. Joel Flynn reports all across Europe, it looks like it's going to be one long, hot, and fiscally ugly summer.
Further doom and gloom for the people of Europe. Spanish miners took to the street on Wednesday, protesting against cuts in subsidies, just as Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy announced a swathe of new taxes and further austerity measures. Rajoy hopes to slash 65 billion euros from the budget deficit by 2014, as recession-plagued Spain struggles to meet tough targets agreed with Europe. He also proposed an increase in VAT and outlined cuts in welfare. Rabobank's Jane Foley says that European austerity could be the biggest threat to the region's recovery.
More austerity will slow down the GDP, and of course as long as you slow down GDP, it's more difficult to get your deficit as a percentage of that GDP back in order. So certainly there's an awful lot of people in Spain are going to be very reluctant to absorb this, and of course it's going to make the political outlook for this government even more rocky as well.
Ireland's finance minister said on Tuesday he wanted the European Stability Mechanism to shoulder the cost of his country's bank bailout. Michael Noonan said he wanted to break the link between taxpayers and bank debt. Barclays' Will Hobbs says the banking deal agreed by Eurozone policymakers won't be enough on its own, though it is a step in the right direction.
Certainly if we get the single bank regulator that they've talked about, it would represent a very important ceding of regional power and a collection of centralised power for the banks, and that's what we really need to see, I think.
Mario Monti has also gone on record to say Italy might want to tap into the Eurozone Rescue Fund as the country faces increasing market pressure. Italian and Spanish government debt prices dropped in early trade on Wednesday. Where the crisis will lurch next, though, is anyone's guess. Joel Flynn, Reuters.
Over to Britain, visitors are arriving for the 2012 Summer Olympics, and while some hotels, restaurants, and other businesses are striking Olympic gold from the Olympic guests, Joanna Partridge reports for the majority of retail sales around London, it will be bronze at best.
After the rainiest June in a century, a bright spot for British retailers. The Queen's Diamond Jubilee helped retail sales to rise at their fastest pace since December last month. The British Retail Consortium says a bunting boost pushed sales at established stores up by almost 1.5%. But Brian Roberts from Kantar Retail says it was only temporary.
They use that as an excuse for a family to get together or get together with friends. So the supermarkets are a clear beneficiary, but what we saw after the Jubilee was actually retail sales returning to a slightly more sort of sluggish trajectory.
Even the Jubilee celebrations didn't help British retail bellwether Marks & Spencer. It's posted its worst quarterly sales performance for 3.5 years. It blamed poor sales of women's clothing on the wet weather, even though other fashion retailers did well in that period. The retailer's now shaken up its management team to try and turn things around. Several months ago, Marks & Spencer's and other large retail chains flagged the Olympics as a major opportunity to boost sales. But many analysts now say that ongoing recession and unseasonably poor weather mean any kind of boost is likely to be muted.
There will be sales of souvenirs, sporting equipment. There might be some extra socialising around some of the really big events as part of as the Olympics draw to a close. That said, I think the key determinant is there aren't any extra days off, which we had in the Jubilee. So any positive uplift I think will be fairly limited.
In a difficult trading environment, major events are becoming crucial to retailers. But it already looks like the sporting spirit won't be enough to get those coming to watch the games racing to the shops as well. Joanna Partridge, Reuters.
In the United States, in the Midwest, a record heat wave is hammering many crops, including corn right now. This past June was the 10th driest on record. And as a result, Bobby Rebell reports prices will be going up for items like popcorn.
Popcorn prices could soon, well, pop. Sizzling weather in the Farm Belt is killing a lot of the corn crop, driving up prices. Gary Smith, president of Iowa-based Jolly Time Popcorn.
The corn clearly is showing stress around here, the dryland corn. You can see it curling.
Jolly Time locks in its prices with farmers ahead of the season, so it isn't raising prices yet.
If it stays up in this area, then we have to be competitive to get a popcorn grower to grow popcorn. And so we'll have to increase our contract price next year, and unfortunately that means there'll be another consumer price increase.
Analysts agree higher prices for supermarket popcorn products like microwave popcorn are just a matter of time. Mark Schober of Colvin & Company.
But I think that you could see popcorn prices increase in the supermarket, anywhere from 5 to 15% if this drought doesn't fix itself here with some rain in the very near future.
Americans eat a whole lot of popcorn, some 16 billion quarts per year, according to the Popcorn Board. That works out to 52 quarts per person.
The good news, movie theater popcorn may get a pass. Bob Golden of food industry consulting firm Technomic.
The price is already at nosebleed levels, and I think consumers will balk at further price increases. And secondly, and probably more importantly, is that the popcorn portion of the product is a very, very low percentage. So for $1 bag of popcorn, which we never see, the popcorn portion alone is 5 or 6 or 7 cents. So an increase in the underlying commodity really won't have much impact on margin for the retailer, and hopefully they'll absorb it.
At Dylan's Candy Bar in New York City, popcorn sales have been on the rise thanks to their creative gourmet flavors and fresh popcorn. And consumers say they will still want their popcorn fix even if prices go higher.
Oh, I would still get it, particularly at the movies. I think it's a staple that you have to get when you go.
More good news for popcorn lovers. Weather forecasts are for rain later this week. Bobby Rebell, Reuters.
In the United States, gross domestic product is minute at under 2% now. In China, the once hot economy is slowing. In Europe, the United Kingdom and Italy are both in recession. Spain is headed there. Our web poll question: is the global economy in recession? Please go to WellTV.com and register your answer. You'll see the web poll question on the right side of the home page. Near Columbus, Ohio, a freight train carrying ethanol derailed. The cars then caught fire, and Travis Brecker reports that forced the evacuation of a mile-wide area.
A derailed freight train in Columbus, Ohio. The train hauling agricultural chemicals ran off the tracks and burst into flames early Wednesday morning. The accident happened near the Ohio State Fairgrounds in the state capital. 2 people were injured and have been taken to a local hospital. The crash forced evacuations from a mile-wide area, and officials set up a shelter at the state fairgrounds for those who had to leave their homes. The cause of the derailment was still under investigation. Travis Brecker, Reuters.
To Mexico, another brazen attack by drug cartels on police. This time it happened in the western state of Sinaloa, home to the resort town of Mazatlan. Deborah Gambaro reports the ambush left a total of 11 people dead.
Officers at the scene of a deadly ambush on a police convoy in Mexico's Sinaloa state. Bullet holes in the windshield of one of the vehicles. Local authorities say 7 police officers and 4 attackers were killed in the shootout. The brazen attack resembled assaults carried out by drug cartels in the region. Sinaloa's governor says he thinks the ambush was an act of revenge following recent law enforcement successes against local cartels. Governor Mario Lopez Valdez.
We have affected them and their mobility, arrested many criminals, and made great seizures so they feel affected. This aggression is a reaction against our police work.
Local cartels are in a fierce and violent fight for control of billion-dollar drug trafficking routes to the United States. Deborah Gimbera, Reuters.
To the Middle East now. In Yemen, a suicide attack at a police academy in the Yemeni capital. The end result, at least 22 people were killed, many of them young police cadets. Deborah Luderbeck reports it looks like the deadly work of al-Qaeda.
At least 22 people are killed after a suicide bomber blew himself up outside a police academy in Yemen. Investigators say the attack bore the hallmarks of al-Qaeda. One witness said he saw a man in his 20s enter the crowd as cadets gathered in front of the academy just before the explosion. The bombing followed a similar attack in the capital in May, when a suicide bomber in an army uniform killed more than 90 people during a rehearsal for a military parade. Analysts say insurgents have been emboldened by the waning government control over the country. The United States has been using drone missile strikes to target Islamist insurgents in Yemen in an expansion of a secretive program which has raised questions both at home and abroad. Deborah Luderbeck, Reuters.
Also in the Middle East and Syria, the civil war continues to spill into neighboring Lebanon now, and that is prompting the Lebanese government to deploy troops along its border with Syria. Deborah Gambara looks at the deadly fallout.
Assessing the damage in northern Lebanon as violence from neighboring Syria spills across the border. 3 people are dead after a night of sporadic shelling. Some of what locals say they found amid the rubble. 2 people were killed after being hit by this car, which was reportedly speeding away from an area under attack. 1 man was killed by the shelling. Rising tension in the area prompted Lebanon's cabinet on Monday to approve the deployment of additional military forces to the border. For some, however, the move does not come soon enough. This is the second fatal attack in 3 days. Deborah Gimbera, Reuters.
To North Africa, the political tension is rising now as the internal power struggle continues between Egypt's new Islamist president and the ruling military. It's being called a constitutional crisis. However, Simon Hanna reports there still is no constitution in Egypt.
Supporters of Egypt's newly elected President Mohamed Morsi filled Tahrir Square on Tuesday night. They were out to demonstrate against a court ruling that overrides Morsi's decree that recalled parliament. On Wednesday, some of the president's supporters remained in the square. Morsi recalled the parliament, which was dominated by the Islamist party that he led until he became president, after it was dissolved by Egypt's military council last month. Its dissolution came 2 days after the Supreme Constitutional Court ruled that the laws under which the parliament was elected were unconstitutional. But some in Tahrir think this was a political decision.
Why did they not say something about the illegality of the parliament laws before it was elected? They didn't know that it was being elected unconstitutionally before it was elected? Or did they just figure out the law right now?
The Muslim Brotherhood and its political wing, the Freedom and Justice Party, say they accepted the court's ruling on the unconstitutionality of Parliament. But they say Parliament should be allowed to continue working until a new one is elected after a new constitution is passed. Simon Hanna, Reuters.
In Indonesia, zookeepers have a problem right now. The issue is an orangutan that smokes cigarettes, and visitors to the zoo are feeding her habit. Tara Cleary looks at going ape over tobacco.
Tori the orangutan has been smoking for 9 years, and officials at this Indonesian zoo are determined to end her addiction. Tori's toxic habit was started by smokers throwing cigarette butts into her enclosure. The zoo's director says they plan to move the ape closer to nature, to an island on the premises. But until that happens, they're taking immediate action.
For the time being, we have several steps planned in conjunction with the Center for Orangutan. One is keeping a medical record. Another is the renovation of her enclosure to protect her from visitors.
The zoo is also educating visitors, which seems to be having an impact.
When she asks for cigarettes, we should ignore her, rather give her fruit or a banana. This isn't good for her health. Smoking is bad for humans and for apes.
Activists say more than 2/3 of Indonesia's orangutan habitat has been destroyed by palm oil farming. And zoos like this one may be one of the species' last hopes for survival. Tyra Cleary, Reuters.
Still to come on Wealth International News, the latest from the global financial markets. Also ahead, a look at China's Olympic camp in North England and why our fishermen in Chile hit the streets in protest. Checking the global financial markets for Wednesday, Wall Street headed down, the Dow off 0.5% on the day. 6 major banks have all downgraded their forecast for economic growth in the U.S. Economic growth in the second quarter stalled. In Europe, a mixed day. In London, the FTSE up 0.5%. In Asia, Japan's Nikkei down 0.5%. China's Shanghai Composite up 0.5%. Oil at $85 a barrel, the dollar higher against the euro, and gold is at $15.73 an ounce. Now to the business of the 2012 Summer Olympics. In China, they take the Olympics very seriously. Games they are not. That's why Eileen CA reports the entire Chinese Olympic team has been moved to north of London.
Situated in North England, Leeds is the 3rd largest city in the United Kingdom after London and Birmingham. It's also a regional industrial and commercial center, a shopping mecca nicknamed the Knightsbridge of the North. And this summer, the city is making a splash on the international stage, with a little help from the 2012 London Olympics.
In the coming months, Leeds will be hosting more than 200 Chinese athletes, training for events ranging from taekwondo, table tennis to swimming. And even though the athletes will not be able to roam around the city on their own, their presence is already felt.
It'd be really cool to see them. I'd really like to see the basketball team. That'd be really cool.
Oh, it's fantastic for Leeds. I mean, there's all sorts going on in Leeds, but it is really, really good. So I'll definitely be looking out for them.
Leeds' natural beauty helped secure its bid as the official European headquarters for the Chinese Olympic team.
Leeds is a very beautiful city. It's my second time here. The first time was in March. We came to check out the facilities after a test event in the UK. And my first impression was, wow, what a pretty little city with a beautiful aquatic centre.
However, what the local officials want the Chinese to remember is not just the scenery, but the city's trade and investment opportunities.
We look to use the time when the Olympic athletes from China are training in Leeds to help raise our profile both in China and also about encouraging companies in the Yorkshire region to think about doing business with China.
It has recruited dozens of Mandarin-speaking volunteers among students and staff to make the Chinese athletes feel at home.
We want to be known for delivering a world-class experience, so they come in, they are prepared fully for the Olympics, and they can go there and say, we had a wonderful time at Leeds.
Aims for the podium in London, Leeds is focusing on a longer-term gain to solidify its trade relationship with the world's 2nd largest economy. I'm Reuters reporter Eileen Xie in Leeds.
Coming up next, the collision of Catholic faith in China as Wealth International News continues. In South America, another conflict in the streets of western Chile. Travis Brecker reports this time the anger is spilling over from the sea.
Violence in cities along Chile's coast as over 200 fishermen clash with police on Tuesday. Here in Valparaiso, protesters hurl missiles at security forces who respond with tear gas and water cannon. These fishermen are demonstrating against the Fisheries Act, which would grant big industry players coastal waters around fishing farms for a 25-year concession. Currently under debate in Congress, the law would take effect in January of next year. According to a report by Chile's Center of Investigative Journalism, 9 companies already farm 90% of Chile's 3 main hauls: sardines, anchovies, and Chilean jack mackerel. Local small-scale fisheries want to see the government regulate fishing licenses and create restricted 5-mile fishing zones to allow local fishermen a more even footing among industry giants. Travis Brecker, Reuters.
To Asia and China, there are two Catholic churches. One is state-sponsored, not recognized by the Vatican. The other is the Free Church. Sarah Charlton reports the two are now butting heads.
Catholics gather in Hong Kong, angry at reports that a Chinese bishop has been detained. Thaddeus Ma Da-chin publicly quit the state-sanctioned Catholic Church and was made bishop in Shanghai with the Pope's approval. A source close to the Vatican has said he is now being held in seminary. Protesters in Hong Kong said it was a deliberate move against the church.
It's really a very obvious way of cracking down on Catholic bishops who won't listen to the Catholic Patriotic Association and the authorities. So we can't accept this because according to the canon law of a Catholic Church, it's the Pope who has the supreme authority to elect bishops and appoint bishops and also to ordain bishops. So we can't accept that the Catholic Church in China now be under the Chinese government's control to break this rule.
It's an escalation of a row over the status of China's state-backed church, which rejects papal control. Beijing and the Vatican differ over who has the authority to appoint bishops.
China's carrying out of normal religious activities as it always does is beyond reproach. We are sincere in wanting to improve relations with the Vatican. We hope the Vatican can face up to reality and take a flexible, practical attitude and create a good atmosphere for improving relations.
Chinese Catholics number between 8 and 12 million. Many face a choice between a state-backed church that has installed bishops without Vatican approval and an underground wing. Sarah Charlton, Reuters.
Coming up next, who's up to stuffing snuff in Germany as Wealth International News continues. In Germany, a competition that is definitely up to snuff. Tara Cleary looks at who is fastest at stuffing tobacco up one's nose.
There's nothing like a cold German beer, followed by a snuff chaser. Close to 300 men and women gathered in Peutenhausen, Germany's powdered tobacco heartland, for the 18th Snuff World Championships. The rules are simple, but not easy. Stuff 5 grams of snuff up your nose in 60 seconds. Christian Knauer Jr. sniffed out the competition to win last year's championships. He says the challenge is nothing to sneeze at.
It's like being a football player. He also wouldn't say after 90 minutes that his feet didn't hurt and it was just a nice walk. Instead, you have to get into it. The nasal mucosa suffers a bit, but that goes away after a few minutes. Then it's okay again.
But for some, the tobacco seemed to snuff out their competitive spirit, while others weren't even prepared to tell their friends about their nose-stuffing adventures.
We keep it a secret. No, I tell them that we're representing the United States of America in an international competition, World Championship.
Many say the secret is not to stuff the tobacco all the way up your nose, and after a good rinse, competitors are soon up to snuff for the next round. Tara Cleary, Reuters.
A very good rinse. That's it for this edition of Wealth International News. Thanks for watching. I'm Graham Ledger. We'll see you again next time. Until then, good day.